Okay, welcome to the second official session of our first official MOPS Talks called The Path to MOPS, How Did I Get Here? We are so excited to have everyone here today, and we are super thankful for Kelly Jo Horton for hosting this session. I'm going to turn it over to her in just a second, but just wanted to introduce kind of what is MOPS Talks and how we're going to be going about this in the future. So this is just a kind of gathering for people in the MOPS Pros community. It's platform agnostic, so we're talking about anything related to MOPS. These are very career focused right now, but we may do other topics in the future. And this morning session for our Eastern Hemisphere of the world friends, well, it wasn't really hemisphere, whatever, I'm not good at geography. It wasn't really hemisphere, but went really well. We will distribute the recording when this is over, and we'll distribute the recording for that one as well, so you're able to see the great questions from our speakers from this morning. So with that, I will pass it over to Kelly Jo to introduce our beautiful panel.
Yeah. On the volunteer panel today, we have Veronica dialing in from where?
Melbourne.
I can't say it right. I know you're gonna trash the way I say it. And why don't you just tell everybody? I think you know a lot of people on this call, but
my boss just showed up.
What your title is, what your role is, where you are now.
So I am the principal consultant at a consultancy called Blueprint X. So we're global in the sense that we work sort of primarily everywhere outside of the US, but so we're a team of marketing automation, sales tech, and basic process automation consultants. I work out of Melbourne. We're primarily based in Sydney, and we have offices around the world. But and I've been in MOPS for around longer than I would like to admit, about 13 years now.
Has it been around that long? Was it a thing?
Yeah. It was a thing. It was a thing.
And Jamie Breidenbach, who I know work together. So Jamie, where are you dialing in from today?
I'm dialing in from Portland, Oregon. So
West
Pacific Northwest. Woo! And I work
at your current role.
So my title, I'm a platform operations consultant at Atumo. So I work with Chelsea and Sydney. So I'm super excited to be here.
So she's representing the agency side here.
Yes.
And I probably don't know a lot of you, and only a couple of people have video on, so I don't know who's out there, but I'm Kelly Jo Horton, and I am the principal engineer of marketing operations and technology for Room, and we are based in New York, but I work from Bend, Oregon. So I'm also West Coast. So I was up very early this morning for the 6 a.m. It was really fun. What we're going to do today, this one is specifically focused, and we are going to take a lot of questions. I also have the questions that everybody submitted ahead of time from the last session and this session. So I'll blend those into, and then we'll just open it up and make it a discussion. This is no death by PowerPoint. We are not presenting anything. We are not selling you anything. We're here to pay it forward and just share our experience with everybody and, make it interactive for people who are in MOPS, who want to be in MOPS, who have no idea why they're here or why they even registered for this. But that's kind of...
I randomly just wandered in here from the footpath.
That's right. You just clicked on it because somebody posted it on LinkedIn, right, Veronica? So we played a little game this morning to start, and we're going to play the same game again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So, no, it's easy. It's fun. Okay, so we did a little thing this morning called What I Do for a Living. So if you've been in MOPS at all for any length of time, you've had to explain what you do to some relative or some random person, and it just gives you anxiety if they're in the space. Okay, so
I'm already overheating just at the thought of this question.
So we're going to imagine that we are on a plane. So this is pre-pandemic, okay?
Oh, wow.
We're on a plane, and I want you guys, would you be sitting in the aisle seat or the window?
I'm totally a window person.
Your window? You're what?
Oh, yeah. A window.
Veronica, are you window too?
Yeah, I'm window.
Window. Okay. So you're sitting in the window seat and your row is full. The woman next to you is an older woman, and you look at her and you go, wow, that's the Queen of England. The Queen of England is sitting there. She's in the middle seat. Don't know how she got there, but she's in the middle seat next to you. She turns to the guy on the aisle and says, she's just being, you know, chatty and being nice and getting to know people. And she says, what do you do for a living? And he says, I'm an accountant. And she says, oh, that's lovely, right? Everybody gets, I'm an accountant. Everybody knows what that is. And so you're starting to sweat, right? Because you know she's going to ask you next. And so she turns to you and she says, oh, Jamie, after you introduce yourself, what do you do for a living? So how do you answer someone like that?
I get this a lot, trying to even explain this to my own family and friends of what I do for a living.
Right, exactly.
I guess in the simplest form, I tell them I'm an architect and a plumber for marketing technology.
But the Queen doesn't know what marketing technology is. What is that?
Oh, it's just managing databases and, you know, making data pass in between tools and, you know, technology type stuff. You know, it's out there. I mean, as soon as I start talking, they just glaze over.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's about as far as it gets.
What would you say to the Queen of England if she asked you what you do for a living?
To be honest, I usually take the low road on that one and go, I'm in marketing.
Yes,
I'm in marketing.
that's exactly
Go, oh,
right.
what kind of marketing do you do? Oh, usually in software.
Market software. I market software.
Most people know what software is, and they go, oh, do you sell software? No, I use software usually.
It's very difficult. I think we really need some sort of elevator speech that's sort of a high level thing. You know, when we're talking to people like the Queen of England or you know, Aunt Mary or whatever. So it's so interesting that it's so hard to explain. So if you could just, you're going to talk to the people now on this call. I'll assume that they're on this call because they're either in MOPS or they know something about MOPS, as we affectionately call it, short for marketing operations, because it's such a mouthful. So can you explain to someone who might be a little more tech savvy what marketing operations is to you?
Do you want to go for?
I mean,
the problem with us is that we're both being awfully polite, and so we're waiting for the other one to speak. So you're going to have to point at one of us.
Okay, Veronica, go. What is marketing operations? How would you define it?
I usually define it from a personal perspective, because I know that there's a lot of different sides to it, and I usually stick to the bits that I'm sort of principally involved in, which is when I talk to tech savvy people, I usually tell them that it is sort of more what Jamie was talking about before, which is the architecture and plumbing of marketing technology, and managing the data, managing the operational processes, and administering the systems and putting the strategy around the systems that allow marketers to take advantage of all the technological or digital opportunities that they have today.
You can hear my dog is barking. We had a thunderstorm and he is beside himself. He doesn't know what to do. He's just barking. He doesn't know where it's coming from. So Jamie, how would you, what's marketing operations to you?
I think it's the backbone or the realism of marketing in general. So you have kind of these, you know, individuals that are extremely creative, and, you know, while we as operations people are creative, but it's in a different way. It's kind of taking somebody's dream and turning it into a reality and making it work. So I say that's kind of, I guess, my take on marketing operations.
It's kind of,
and the hardest thing is making sure that people understand that you're not the person who's doing the campaign execution that often, right? So it's usually the marketing ops people are the enablers, they're the process makers, they're the guardrail builders, they're the police, they're the brand guardians, they're the people who are setting those guardrails in place for marketers to be able to do their jobs without risk, with the ability to innovate, but the ability to know that what they're doing is following process, it's following legal requirements, it's within the bounds of their own company guardrails. So I like to think of it as trying to make people safe while innovating, and giving them the structures and the tools they can do to do that.
Okay, someone earlier today had made, I can't remember the analogy, but it was similar to the plumber and the tool thing, like that too. So that's very hard to explain. I mean, I just say, you know, when I talk to people who don't understand it, I had this question the other day. I say, well, all of the marketing that you can see, I manage everything you can't. All the platforms and the tools underneath that support everything that you can see on the surface, we are like, there's an iceberg here, and you know, there's the marketing team up here that shows you this much. We are the people who manage everything on the back end. And if you're a team of one, you may do the whole thing, all of the iceberg, like everything. I had someone this morning who writes content, sends emails, manages the platforms on the back end. So it depends on how big your team is, right? So I want to talk about, because we have some people who are curious about how to get into this role, or how you got into this role. So do you remember the job you had right before you discovered that this was a thing? Like that this might be an interesting path. Jamie, what was the job you were doing before you either got forced into this job or you chose to go into this job? Because a lot of people end up here accidentally. So what was
actually, so I started from the bottom. I was like an internal BDR type of person, making cold calls, and I ended up just kind of like, you know, taking on different roles, trying to grow as quickly as I could within my previous employer, and really just wanting to, you know, I guess find my way. I'm not a cold caller. I hate being on the phone. And so I ended up, like, through some like reorgs and just job transitions and things like that, I ended up falling into an email marketing role for a field marketing team. And at that point in time, we still had this homegrown outbound email tool. I don't even remember what the name of it was, but you know, at that point in time, that's when you know, marketing automation started coming into play. I was on an implementation team to discover a marketing automation system to implement, and essentially from there just grew into essentially owning the platform for that organization. So that's how I fell into the role. Somebody took a chance on me and thought I'd do a good job.
Okay, so Jamie started in sales in a very large company.
Yeah.
So, but I would say not a very digitally savvy company at the time. So, because I worked there too. So there was a lot of progress to be made, and she took advantage of that by volunteering and just sort of saying, yes, I'll try that, I'll do that. And so that's how she moved over.
I found it extremely fascinating. And from my role, you know, working in sales, I kind of fell into this CRM partnership role where, because of the position I was in, I would do troubleshooting, reporting, you know, all those types of things. And it's essentially where I fell in love with systems. I'm a very process-oriented person, and being able to do it from a systems perspective, I found fascinating. And it was just something that I just continue to be passionate about and grow into. So.
And what about you, Veronica? Where were you before this? Or did you start here?
No, oh my God. I was in MOPs is what I call my third career. I was well and truly at the back end of my second career. So I started as a writer, a technical writer straight out of university, and moved into a lot of different IT related roles throughout the years, pretty much always primarily focused on communicating with the customer. So I, web design, different types of community building, was at the forefront of online help systems, things like that. So I was always sort of looking for that next bit of technology that was around communicating better with people, so it doesn't surprise me that I ended up where I am. But look, I've thought a lot about the fact that you were going to ask this question, and I've decided to blame it on Xena Warrior Princess. So I was thoroughly bored in my first career, which was as a technical writer. So I used to get my job done in a very short amount of time. And me and another friend of mine pretty much spent most of our time building online portals and communities and chat rooms and fan fiction databases and all kinds of things for our obsession with Xena. So I know, it's sad. And to be fair, my boss knew I was doing this, because when I left that company 4 years later, my going away present was a 12-inch Xena doll, which I still have. But it grew. Like I had the interest in building online communities and building these systems and working with automation and working with the platforms and stuff even before the platforms existed. So as soon as they actually started, so I happened to fall into marketing. I came out of product management, I went into product marketing, and I fell into the marketing side of things right when marketing automation hit. So I had a very forward-thinking boss, but this was 2008. And I don't know if everyone remembered what happened in 2008.
Yes, but, we're all talking about that this morning too. Yeah.
The bottom fell out of the world, especially in the technology industry. And what happened to me was I was like the 3 IC in a small technology company, and was suddenly promoted to the head of global marketing overnight, because the 2 people above me who had fostered one of whom had fostered some of my interest in technology and platforms and CRM, and we had just put Salesforce in at that point. From a CRM perspective, really early on, and the bottom fell out of everything. And I had suddenly been promoted into this role, and I had 10 people reporting to me. The most I'd ever had reporting to me was like 2. And so I learned really quickly. And we had no money, we had no budget. And what I did was I took my 80% of my budget and I went, I need to find a platform that can do online what we used to do everywhere else. So I stole like 20-30% of the events budget. I stole all of the advertising budget. I proved to someone in the organization that Google AdWords were not working for us. I pumped it all into this funny little platform starting with M.
We can mention names. I mean, we are platform agnostic, but people work on certain.
I pumped it all into this purple-looking toy called Marketo. That was not even my first choice. My team members overruled me. I wanted to go with another platform that didn't exist 2 years later, which was hilarious. But they overruled me. We got Marketo, and we were the first company in the whole of Australia to start using it.
Trailblazer.
And it kind of evolved from there. So me and one of my staff members just became really good at this by necessity overnight. And I was a terrible manager. I have to tell you, I was a terrible manager because all I wanted to do was play with this thing. I didn't want to let my other people play with it. I wanted to play with this thing. So
you like being an individual contributor as opposed to a manager.
I did like being an individual contributor at that point. I'm a lot better at stepping back and allowing my team to do their thing these days. But in the beginning, when I was much younger, I think this was 12, 13 years ago, I wanted to learn. I wanted to be I wanted to be on the tools, and I am not a process, structure, system, database oriented person. I'm a wordsmith, creative, communication, message type of person. And that was where I was coming from. I wanted a tool to help me get my message out and to communicate better and more personally with customers. So that was where I was coming from. I didn't come from an IT data kind of,
most people came from so many different paths.
Yeah.
Because there really is no marketing operations degree from college. It's not like you go to college
Still
and you
isn't here. Still is
major.
not here. There is still in Australia no degree that will give you this. That will
So
let you do this.
what degree do you have? Both of you. Do you have a degree or not? Do you have a college
I have 3.
I have a bachelor's degree in business management and leadership. So somewhat applies, but it's so generic that it could go anywhere.
And what
I
about
have a bachelor in film studies, an honors in communications, and a master's in English literature.
Very good. See, I just want to tell people on the phone, if there's anyone, I was hoping some like college students would join because I do talk to a lot of students about this. And I do say, everyone I know has a different college degree or no college degree. They're doing just fine because there really isn't a college degree for this. So do not be put off on applying for a job just because you think you have the wrong degree and because some recruiter put on the job description that you need to have a, I don't know, computer science or, you know, some marketing degree. You do not. We all have different degrees.
That being said, I'm a huge proponent of qualifications generally. Like I'm a huge believer in education, but the university or college, as you guys call it, the university experience for us, I believe, teaches you constructive thinking and the ability to communicate and the ability to work with data and evidence-based learning. I believe in all of those things, and I do think the fact that I went through a structured university environment did give me the ability to think and to analyze and to do those types of things. So
I have a degree in journalism.
That's fantastic. I did a couple of journalism subjects as part of my university degree, long enough to know I didn't want to be a journalist.
What I'm saying is there's no common degree here, right?
I don't think so,
on the
no.
call this morning has a degree in theater. And he said, you know, it taught me to be on time because you have a show to put on, under budget, and just get it done, right? So for him, having that theater background, being a stage manager and things really, really helped him.
I think the best you can hope for these days is a course or a component within a larger business or marketing or other type of degree. I think the best you can hope for these days is you might get a course in CRM or marketing ops or something like that, or marketing automation as part of a larger degree. But that's probably the best you can hope for.
Yeah.
I went to school a long time ago.
I went to school a long time ago too.
Yeah. So one of
it was like a long time ago for me.
One of the topics that this is a question I get a lot too, and I'm sure you do as well. How important are certifications on all the different, because there are 8,000 different tools and platforms out there that we could be integrating. And let's be honest, right? I don't have the time or the money to be certified on all of them. So when is it important and when does it not matter if you have a certification or not? You don't have to mention any tools, but let's just talk in general.
Yeah.
Because people ask me, should I get certified? And if I give an honest answer, I don't think they're going to like it, right? But not everybody would agree. So what do you think, Jamie, about certifications?
You know, I think it's if it's relevant and it's challenging and it is something that requires experience and skill set in order to acquire it, then yeah, I'm all for certifications. I just recently took my Marketo certification. I spent 7+ years in Marketo, for example, and I did not have my MCE at all. And so when I transitioned to Atumos, I ended up getting it.
I'm only laughing because I think that people who've been in Marketo people who've been in marketing automation for longer actually find it scarier to do their certification because A, they think it's a real reflection that they can fail. And
the
B,
imposter syndrome for real.
They know too much about the platform, so you overthink the exam, and you're like, I can think of 4 ways of making that work.
Yeah,
very true.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely, I think, different certifications. If there's a certification out there where people don't even really have to be in the tool or know anything, it's just more generalized, then I don't feel it's
Yeah,
necessarily
if you can just
worth
take a
it.
test, if you're good at test taking and you can pass a multiple choice test for something,
Pretty obvious.
I don't
Any
find that
certification you can get without actually having opened the tool is worthless.
right. So, but we do see, everyone knows on job listings, a lot of times they require certifications for different platforms. So,
If
you
it
know,
is your primary platform, I do 100% agree that getting a certification shows that you are committed to you are committed not necessarily to the platform, but committed to learning. And achieving certain levels of learning. To be honest, I don't look for a specific certification. I look to see if somebody has bothered to get certified on anything, like especially things like CRM or marketing automation platforms where I know the certifications mean something. If you are in the agency and consulting world, you must have it. I'm sorry, you just have to, because you can't sell your skills to a client without proving that you've reached a certain level and you've invested a certain amount of time building your skills in that field. I don't think it's possible to exist without it. If you are in-house, however, I think that it serves to build your confidence. It serves to build your belief in yourself that you can do this. It gets over the destructive imposter syndrome type things that can crowd your head. You go,
someone
you know
brought
what?
that up this morning, the imposter syndrome, the same.
And you know what? I did it. I got here. I got to this level, and I did it on my own. And I did it by learning and evolving and being curious and getting those skills. And I think if you are an in-house person, then that's almost primarily the reason why I would do it. But I do believe that sticking certifications on job ads in this kind of where we are in the evolution of our profession, stupid. I can teach anyone who's used Eloqua before how to use Marketo. What I can't teach are soft skills, how to talk to people, how to build relationships, how to work within the organization that you're going to work with to get stuff done, how to talk to clients if you're a consultant. Those are the types of things that somehow that they come a little bit more naturally and are skills that people need to evolve. But a certification is not going to tell me that. Certification, it might be nice to have on a resume. As a consultant, I think it's a must-have. But in a work environment or an in-house environment, if you see someone go, okay, awesome, tick, they've done that for themselves. But I'm really looking for someone who can work within my org to do what I need to do and to fill the needs that I have. And I think that that's probably more important.
I agree. I kind of agree with that. I think we're about halfway. Sydney or Sion, do we have any questions in the chat?
Hi. We don't have any real questions. Lots of fun chatter.
But
if anyone has
some awesome comments that have popped up.
Yeah, some awesome comments. Okay, we do have a question coming in now. I actually am just going to invite anyone that has a question to go ahead and unmute themselves. And
yeah, you can. If you want to be personal, ask away.
Yes, I have a question. This is Nancy Chow, and I also said it in the chat box. Do you want to read it from there, or?
No, you can go ahead and just ask your question.
Go ahead.
That's great.
You're on now.
Okay. First of all, I really enjoyed this forums, my first time attending, and I think I will come back. But I am a startup CMO, a marketing army of one. Recently, I had to jump head first into doing Facebook and LinkedIn ads. And I find it really super frustrating in that I find the FAQs are never adequate. They don't give me the context I need to actually understand the link that they gave me, explaining whatever it is I'm asking, right? And so I guess given you guys are marketing operations professionals and you're dealing with data and you're looking at things behaving strangely and trying on the fly figure out what to do you guys have any tips for somebody who's not been down in the trenches under pressure to learn platforms that by reading FAQs, watching YouTube videos, Googling the precise your best description of the problem you're trying to solve, right? And
join our MOPs Pros Slack group.
Yeah.
because we talk about
Nancy,
stuff.
I have been you. I have absolutely been you. And I've spent most of my life in the startup world where you have very few resources and you have to get a lot done with very few people. And the thing I will tell you is find your tribe, find your people. They are out there, especially today. So there are groups of people who are experts at Facebook. There are groups of people who are experts at Marketo or Eloqua or HubSpot. There are groups of people who are experts at this, who have been you and who have been where you are. And they can tell you that answer that you need in like a third or a quarter of the time and in context. They can tell you that answer you need faster than you're going to be able to Google it or try to make sense of the instructions, something like that. That being said, I come from a technical writing background. Read the instructions. Yes, you absolutely should read the instructions and the documentation, because nothing frustrates people on these communities more than people who walk in who go, how do you send an email? And they haven't bothered to read the documentation.
I totally empathize. I understand that because, I've integrated, I think, 5 different platforms in the last month. And and I'm a team of 1 also. We just hired a paid media person recently. So I understand when I see documentation that has steps 1, 2, 3, 4, but no context, like nothing at all of why you're doing this and why you're doing that. And I find these, like Veronica said, your tribe, like we have such a tight knit community of people who are so helpful. There are, I don't know how many, over 1,000 people in our MOPS Pros Slack group.
And everybody knows weird stuff.
There's a bunch of channels in there. You can post questions. Nobody calls you stupid. I mean, we all, when somebody's having issues with something, we post in there, we discuss it. It's like phoning a friend every day. And I mean, I'm embarrassed to say how much time I spend in the MOPS Pros Slack group every day, but I learn something new every day. I ask questions every day. It's a great way to connect, very non-judgmental and platform agnostic. So anything goes in there. But you definitely need a community of people to help you.
By the way, how long have you guys been around? Where did you guys when did you guys get started? And the principle behind the MOPS meetup, where is that person from? What city?
I'll take this. Okay. So MOPS Pros has been around, the Slack group has been around since 2017. So coming up on 3 years. This is actually our first talk, so it's your first time and it's everyone's first time. But there are little pockets of this community that know each other from other contexts. We have some Marketo champions, we have other like Pardot power users that know each other through those things, and we also have people who actually work at the same company. So it may seem like everyone knows each other because of that, but this group has grown quite a lot in the last several months. So there are tons of new people here, and I think that any question you have, someone could absolutely jump in and answer.
Honestly, at this point, it's a pay it back thing for me. The first 3 years of learning about marketing automation, there were like 10 people in the whole of my country who even used this thing. Like the internet was my savior. We would jump on, we would find people, we would ask questions, and it was how we all kind of learned together. And if I hadn't had those people when I was coming up, I'm sure I would not be where I am today. So for me, it's a case of, okay, I've been there, I've done that. I still get a lot of value personally out of this group, but for me, I get a lot of satisfaction in being able to give back to that community now and people who are coming up through. So it's a two-way street for me.
Yep, and I wanted to put this whole idea together because there are plenty of user groups out there, but they're very platform specific. And so many of us work in so many different platforms and integrate so many different tools. I wanted a discussion, to be able to talk about everything without being, platform specific and just talking about, because we do have great user groups out there for, like Marketo and Salesforce and things like that. But when you want to talk about marketing operations in general, it's nice to have a forum to do that. And so I really wanted to have this informal MOPS talk type of thing to do that, and to pay it back, because it's much better to do a one-to-many discussion than it is for me to talk to every Uber driver, every bartender, every college student, every recruiter who emails me and asks for help with a job description. Or it's just much better for us all just to talk about it together, and it's helpful. I like it. This is what I wanted to do, exactly with this, is get people that we could help and pay it forward. So as you know, as you've noticed, this is not about training on any specific platform or anything like that. We had some questions on specific use cases for things, but we're talking, at least on this one, we're more career focused, because people want to know, should I get into this career? How did you get into this career? What about the topic of, is there a career trajectory? Can you move up? Are there people who move from being a very senior MOPS person to being a CMO? Or do you want to be in this career just where you are for a long time? Jamie, what do you see the career trajectory or the possibilities for someone in this role if they don't just want to be an individual contributor?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity. Working at Atumos, I feel extremely privileged that our leadership team all has some type of experience in marketing operations. It's an agency for marketing automation and technology, but I feel like there's an advantage of somebody having that experience, being able to lead a company, or stepping up into, if you're, in another organization outside of consultancy, just huge advantage for having somebody who has the know-how, or just the ability to be able to have those types of conversations. In the experience of leaders that I've had across various organizations, it's one thing that has been a struggle, is trying to relay the how important and how critical having a marketing operations team is. They're essentially the backbone to your entire marketing organization, and it's in order for the entire company to understand that how important these individuals are. I feel like you need somebody in a leadership role to be able to be a partner and be a component to be able to tell that story as well.
I'm curious if any of you feel stuck, however, in the sense that you're held back because you're seen as very technical, and therefore you're not perceived as being on track to move over to the business side and rise to be a CMO.
Number one piece of feedback that I have gotten in my performance reviews over the years has been, you're not strategic enough, which is a backhanded way of saying, because I perceive you as being on the tools, I don't perceive you as being strategic. It's not always that you actually don't have strategy as part of your thinking process. In fact, the most successful marketing operations people that I've met are extremely strategic. They think about what they need to do, they build a plan, they build a process, and they spend as little time on the tools as they possibly can. The feedback that I would give to that is, it's up to you to take that one on. Nobody is going to hand this to you, and nobody who's ever been a CMO has had it handed to them, except in certain circumstances. Don't get me started. But at the end of the day, because we are coming from a niche area from within marketing that has been shoved into that niche area, we are both a victim of our own success and responsible for getting ourselves out of it. The arguments that I have had with marketing operations people are, do you know what? You're really good at nurturing your customers, but you're terrible at nurturing your organization. You're not showing people what you're doing that's good, because operations is only visible when it fails. You've got to be better at communicating your successes, communicating how that has impacted your business, communicating what you're doing that is improving the bottom line. And I don't mean showing how every ticket that you have answered this month impacts revenue. That's not what I'm saying, and that's an impossible thing to ask someone to do. But what I am saying is that you need to, especially, and anybody whose manager is managing them more than they are managing their manager, you're doing it wrong. Like you should be managing. My boss is on this call, I would just like to say. But you have to spend as much time managing your manager and getting them to understand what's important to you as you spend understanding what's important to them and meeting that expectation. And I believe as marketing operations people that we are excellent at the tools, we are excellent at processes, we are excellent at burying our heads in the sand and blaming the rest of the world for not understanding what we do. And I think that we have to take that step towards other people and sort of say, this is what we do, this is how I contribute, just as much as we need to expect our organizations to reach to us and go, how can you contribute to what we're doing here? I don't think that you can just kind of sit back and go, I don't believe nobody understands what I do. Have you told anyone today? Like, that nobody's going to understand what you do if you don't reach out and make that visible within the organization. And I strongly, strongly believe that that's something that marketing operations people don't do well enough today.
They don't. I would say that also one of the traps of this job is when you're really good at it, you don't get promoted because you're hard to replace.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
People are saying, wow,
Yeah.
that person knows.
That's also your own fault because you haven't done anything within your organization to train your successor.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking
planning.
about, I'm not saying this personally, but I've seen this over and over again. That people in this role, if you're really good, you are hard to replace. And it's really hard to find people who, first of all, you have to understand your go-to-market strategy, business, everything from beginning to end, from acquisition to closed won. If you do not understand how customers buy your product, you will not be able to do this job from the beginning to end. You have to understand the whole funnel. So any misconception that if you're, especially if you're a team of one, okay? If you're a team of one and you're making decisions over multiple platforms for multiple organizations, you better understand how your sales team sells things, how your marketing team does demand gen and lead gen. So there's a misconception, I think, that some of us, especially people like me, I have a title of principal engineer. People will think that I'm sitting writing code all day, but I'm actually an architect at a higher level, and I have to understand all the way business works in the entire company before I can, put all of these different platforms together and map data flows and things like that. So I think people who have business degrees, I do not. Business degrees, MBAs, really useful in understanding things like this, and I think really helpful for this job in general. But yeah, I agree. A lot of people get stuck in this role because they're really good at it, and they don't advocate for themselves to move into anything else if they want to. A lot of people like being in this.
That being said, that there should be within our industry, and as our industry grows and as we get more people, and we have even more problems with this in Australia because we have far fewer businesses, far fewer people in this industry, and career paths are harder to map because you're kind of like, okay, I should be able to, if I want to, just get more and more senior in marketing ops. If this is where I'm comfortable, if this is where I want to stay, why should I be forced to go out of my career lane when I really love this to get more seniority and to get more? And sometimes you are actually limited by your organization in that way. If you are in a smaller organization, you can't expect to move up if there's only budget for one person to do what you do.
Exactly. There's
But if you're in a larger organization, I drowned when I went to a larger organization because the politics and the structure and everything. Some people are born for larger organizations. Some people are born for smaller organizations. I'm born for things that are more agile. I know some operations people who have gone into large organizations and achieved monumental things in increments that are this big, but over a 4-year period have transformed their whole organizations, and that's what they were born to do, and they did that. The trick is to find. It's not just finding your way in your profession, it's finding the organization that suits you, who is going to help you along the way, who has scope for getting you where you need to go. And sometimes if you want to go from A to B, it can't be within the same company. And you have to recognize that, because and be honest with the organization that you're in too. Like, have the conversation, but then go, and if they push back and they go, well, there's really nowhere for you to go unless you want to break out and move over here or try something else. So then the choice is up to you. Do I try something else, and do I do something different, or do I move on in my profession somewhere else? And that really becomes your choice at that point.
That's essentially. Yep, go.
No, go ahead. It's a totally different question. So if we're still on this topic.
We only have 10 minutes left, so we need to. If you have an interesting question.
Okay, yeah, this is Mark Ollendorf. I am curious. I've been in the industry for quite some time myself, also starting back in 2008 or so during the nascence of marketing automation. But let me ask you guys where you think the future is for the functional role, given the fact that and a lot of people may not even know or have heard about the concept of revenue ops and how they're merging marketing ops, sales ops, and actually
That's where I am. I'm in revenue ops right now.
Yep. And customer success ops, Kelly, that you actually mentioned, you didn't mention as the bottom of that sort of other part of the funnel that you need to pay attention to, because they are customers too. Where do you guys think the functional role or our industry is moving towards, and how are they getting there?
I will talk. I'm letting you guys talk because I'm just.
I'll let Jamie. I was waiting for Jamie to go there.
No, go for it.
Stop being polite.
There's a lot of places we can go. We are at the beginning of this industry. We really are. We're coming into a point where we're starting to see branches. So there's a lot of thought leadership at the moment around platform ops versus DevOps versus campaign ops versus, breaking things out in that way. And I know at Chumosu, there's a lot of representatives on this call are kind of leaders in that space. And then there's the whole revenue ops, and should sales ops and marketing ops be in the same, should they work together under a revenue ops stream and be in partnership? I'm extremely pro that. But the future for people who want to stay in that ops space is to have the ability to specialize within that ops space and be sort of campaign ops versus platform ops and things like that. And there was this wonderful question that popped up halfway through that relates to this, is like, should I go off and learn SQL, or should I go off and learn programming? If you want to, but don't go off and learn programming if what you want is to lead a team of people and be a business leader in your organization, because that's not going to get you there. It's going to get you better at data management. It's not going to get you better at running this within your business. So the future is creating a larger space. I do believe that we have the ability to rise to not just a CMO, but to COO, to chief digital officers, to chief customer officer. All our skill set lends itself to that in terms of building to that level. But it also lends us to break out into other things, like marketing ops can move very easily into community platform ops, into customer engagement, into CX management in a lot of ways. It's a wonderful springboard off into a lot of different areas.
On that note, I'm very curious now with the whole pandemic, and lots of companies are moving jobs, giving the employee flexibility to work from home. Do you guys feel marketing ops is a profession that lends itself?
I have worked for 5 years.
You're shooting fish in a barrel on this one. All of the people on this call work from home.
It's one of those, first of all, you're not going to be successful in this job anywhere, in person or at home, if you do not have the skills to build bridges, and communicate between sales, marketing, sales ops, finance, all of the different groups that we are the glue
Gotta be
for.
the glue.
We're the glue. So whether you do that from home or in an office, in my last 2 roles, I've worked remotely, and I traveled to the office in New York. I was there once a month until this pandemic hit, and before I worked for a company in San Francisco, and I would go in once a month because I think it's important to develop relationships in person at some point. So I do want to see my colleagues in person, and I do get a lot done in meetings when I'm there in person. But it is a job that lends itself wonderfully to remote work. And just looking at some of the agencies like Atumas, they're all remote. They work from everywhere, which helps support multiple time zones and things like that. You know, it's a great job for that. I think the structure is changing too often of where this role sits. In the last year, I've been transferred twice in 2 different companies, from starting in a systems group to being transferred to the SVP of marketing in 2 different companies within the space of a year. Because there's such this confusion about where does this role belong? I'm a big fan of the hub and spoke model myself. And I am a proponent of having a centralized demand center that has spokes out into the other organizations, so that your demand center does a lot of the work, but you also have people in other organizations who, for example, know how to create an email program and send an email, or the lighter lifting things, but to keep the technology in one place makes it easier just to manage everything, to manage the stack. So my opinion is to not decentralize everything, but to have a hub and spoke, keep your skilled marketing ops and sales ops people together, but have counterparts in other organizations if you have a big enough organization where you communicate and support each other. Haven't seen that very often, and you have to have a bigger organization with money to do it, you know, and a lot of people I know are teams of one. Like me, I work for a startup, so that's not going to happen anytime soon where I am, because we have 50 people. So, you know, I'm probably
you're working from home full time, Jamie, though, don't you? Like
yeah,
even before this.
Yeah. Before this, it was I would say it's half. I had the opportunity to work from home, but I also had an office to go to. So
yeah, it's a great job for
the idea of being chained to a desk 24/7 was one of the reasons that drove me into consulting, to be honest. because it was perfect for someone like me who wanted to be in different places and visit customers and be close to the front lines rather than actually behind the scenes, which is quite honestly where most MOPs people sit.
There are a couple of questions about that. We've all been in consulting and we've all been on the brand side, I think. So for you, is there a different personality that fits more on the agency side or on the brand side, or what is it that makes you want to do one or the other?
Is hell a swear word? Hell yes. There's a different personality. There's a different personality type, and I think it's based in ownership. So consultants are people who are comfortable with other people owning things and being contributors and being experts and being people who feed into a process. If you're working in-house, you are an owner. You're responsible, you're pushing things through, you're driving the politics, you're building consensus, you're working within the structures of your organization. And I know a lot of consultants, myself included, who kind of suck at that. It's not my skill set, but I know a lot of MOPs people internally, and they're brilliant at it. But you bring them out into consulting, and the first thing they think is, oh, this is so frustrating. I can never see something through to the end. Like, you have to get comfortable with that. You have to get comfortable with the fact that you might only be doing this bit or 2/3 of the job, but the in-house people take it the rest of the way or something like that. It's very rare in a consultant's career you get these massive projects where you get to work end to end and see it through to the end and you're part of the team and stuff like that. If you get those jobs there, they can be in equal parts awesome and frustrating. But I do find that that I fit better in the consulting space because I like smaller projects. I like to dip in and out. I like different challenges. I like to learn things quickly. And in-house requires a different set of skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree. Completely different skill set. I suck at politics. I am very much a lone person. I like to have my time to be able to work, but I also enjoy having a variety of things to work on. I think that's where you expedite your learnings, is just having that experience. Whereas in-house, you know, if you're constantly running into the same roadblocks, it's extremely draining and frustrating. And, you know, that's where, you know, for me, moving into the consulting world, I love it so much. I've always been scared of it. I was, you know, in-house person at, you know, the previous organization for 11 years. And, you know, it wasn't until, you know, kind of, you know, somebody was like, well, you're really good at tools. I want you to take over, you know, this much stuff. And it started transitioning into a role that I didn't find enjoyable anymore. You know, it was, it's just not something that I wanted to do. And I wanted to take that ownership back for myself. And so that's, you know, how I ended up getting into the consulting world. And it's just a much better fit for me personally, I think.
I'd just like to throw out that anyone who's considering moving from in-house to consulting, the first thing that you have to get into your head is that every minute of your day is billable, like every minute. So, and you're billing in sort of 15-minute increments, stuff like that. You don't have time to stare at your computer and go, I wonder how this works. No, there isn't so much of that. Like, if you want to do that, you do that on your weekends. Like the in-house, one of the things I loved about in-house was I could spend 2 days going, do you know what? I'm going to puzzle this out. I'm going to work it out. I'm going to get this person involved. I'm going to get that person involved. I'm going to build this as a cross-functional team and exercise. I'm going to draw on all the skills in the organization. I'm going to make this happen. As an in-house person, that I think is gold. If you can be that type of person, because that was what I loved about working in-house. Being able to spend time solving puzzles. In the consulting world, you walk in, someone tells you their problem, you're almost expected to know the answer straight away. And that can be very intimidating.
I have a quick question, could be rather specific, but this is great. Thank you so much for a great panel discussion. Wondering what are the things or the steps that help every one of you grow beyond campaign operations into platform operations?
Guts, confidence, fake it until you make it. You got to not be afraid to fail, and you have to be willing to say yes and, which is something I learned in improv comedy. Yes and instead of no, and don't say I can't. I just integrated 3 platforms I'd never touched in my life, and I just told everyone, I've never done this before, but I'm going to go give it a go, and it was fine. It was like, we're not heart surgeons, you know, nobody's going to get hurt if I don't do it right the first time. I would just say explore and be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to fail and make mistakes, and just try to learn new things and volunteer like Jamie did to try to do things that you're not assigned to. Just keep volunteering and raising your hand.
Fail fast and iterate.
Yeah.